Well, welcome. Tonight we're going to do a show that I'd say 98% of the people have no idea what the position is and what it does. So why don't we start with an introduction?
All right, well, thank you for having me tonight. I'm Stephanie Fatman, and I'm the Register of Probate for Worcester County. So as you said, most people are not familiar with the position, and it's basically a position in the court system. So most people think of an elected position in the legislative branch or the executive branch, and this is one in the judicial branch. And it's overseeing all of the documents that go through the probate and family court. So it's definitely a unique elected position.
So now, first of all, I got to ask.
Okay.
Because I know you're intelligent, and I know your husband, our senator, is intelligent. What prompted the two of you to go after elected positions? The morning after the election, you're either very happy or both of you are out with a tin cup. Well, you won't, because you have a skill. Oh, Ryan,
yes, I like to think so. It was definitely a crazy year for us, but we were both committed to serving our communities, and it was a chance we were willing to take. It was very important to us while we serve in two very different ways. We both wanted to give back to the communities, and Ryan, of course, started first, and he was elected as a selectman and then in the House of Representatives, and I watched him help people. I watched him go door to door in the communities that he represented, and I saw what he could do to affect people's lives, and it just sparked the passion in me, and I followed suit. My background's in business, and then I left private business to go to law school, so I always thought I would help people somehow in the legal community. And then I started to see all of the problems in the probate and family court. I thought that the court itself was mismanaged, the office was not run properly, and that there was a lot more we could do to help people in the community. And I thought it was absolutely worth going for it and seeing what changes we could bring.
We'll get back to that, because during your campaign, you talked about fixing some of the areas that weren't managed to optimal standards.
Yes.
But now you turn around and you say, what's a register of probate? Is it probate? I'll find it, I'll register it. No.
Not quite.
But most people have no idea. They've heard of probate, like if you don't have a will, but they don't even think about the family end of it, which I would think is a large part of what you do.
Really the bulk of it. So the Register of Probate serves in the probate and family court. And the probate and family court covers everything from adoptions, guardianships, name changes. We even do some restraining orders. But then there's also the probate side, which is wills and trusts. And so the register is responsible for overseeing every case that goes through that registry and into the court. So we take your files, everything you're filing with us in the court system, we're putting it into your case for you, and then we're following it as it goes through the entire process in front of the judges, and then you get your final judgment in order from the judges.
Now, you're up in Worcester.
Worcester.
Do we have a register of probate? We don't have one in Milford.
Nope, so this position covers all of Worcester County. So there's 60 cities and towns in Worcester County.
60 cities you've got to deal with?
60 cities and 800,000 people, so it's quite a large county. And there's a register of probate for every county, a court system for every county, so 14 counties across the state.
So we can call Ryan a slacker. He only has to do 13 cities.
I remind him often. He knows.
I was going to say, he's only having to fight for a real small fraction of what you have to deal with.
Definitely, definitely. Worcester County is huge. And there's quite a lot of cities, a lot of small towns, so a lot of different types of people, a lot of different demographics that we try to cover and hear everyone's needs and try to make sure that we're servicing everybody across the entire area.
But now, is it only the Worcester court itself, or are you looking over documents for many of the courthouses?
Everything goes through the Worcester court. So we're located right downtown Worcester on Main Street.
So why do we have a Milford courthouse?
That's a district court, different court.
What do they do?
They do different cases, so any type of cases that go through district court. Each court has its own jurisdiction, and so probate and family is, like I said, anything that deals with probate or family issues, the guardianships, the divorces.
It has to go to Worcester.
It all goes through the probate and family court, which is in Worcester, located in the Worcester courthouse on Main Street, yes.
So what is the biggest type of activity that you deal with?
We see a lot of divorces. We're seeing a lot of guardianship cases. We're seeing the drug addiction crisis that's affecting Worcester County and really the whole state right now. It is huge in the court. We're seeing a lot of grandparents coming in and filing for guardianship of their grandchildren because their children are addicted to a substance. And so we're watching a lot of that come through. We're watching a lot of guardianships of brand new babies, 1-day-old babies, 1-week-old babies that aren't able to leave the hospital because they were born addicted. And we're working hard in the community to try to see what we can do to bring awareness to it.
I am days away from my first grandchild.
Well, that's exciting. Congratulations.
Yes, but what you're saying...
It's scary.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it is. I'm working with the District Attorney Joe Early right now. We have a task force going across the county. The Opiate Addiction Task Force, to see what we can do to raise awareness. One of the focuses is education, letting people know that the crisis is very real. I mean, we read about it in the newspapers, we see it every day, but what can we do to let people know where to turn? And so that's a very important element of working in the court system. We work with people as they come in every day. They file their documents in our court right over our counter, but then they leave the court. And it's hugely important for me to make sure that when they go back out in the community, we're aware of where they're going and what they're doing and what resources they have available to them. And so as the Register, it's important to me to help provide some of those resources. And so it's education. What can we tell them about a drug drop-off box location, for example? That's a huge thing we're working on right now. Where are they located in the county? Where can we direct people to? What other resources can we provide people with, just if it's informational material or it's a treatment center? So I spend a lot of my time out in the community helping to find those resources so we can direct people to them when they leave the court.
Well, I was stunned when Sheriff Lou came on.
Mm-hmm.
And he started talking about how many of our children get hooked because of our own silliness. And I never thought about it, but after that show I ran home immediately and started looking at all the medicine cabinets and everything. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, there's a Percocet left over, or there, and I never thought about the fact that he said how many kids start by just going to mom or dad's medicine cabinet and nibbling on leftovers.
It's definitely a leading cause where people start, and it's bringing that education to it, letting people know that check your medicine cabinets, check for the leftover pills, being aware, having the conversations with your children, with your neighbors, with your friends, and making people aware that it is very real. It happens in any family. There's no specific demographic that it's hitting the hardest.
When we were kids, and you thought of heroin users, it was like the marijuana documentaries of the 60s. It was these really seedy people in very bad neighborhoods who looked like heroin users. I hate to stereotype, but all of a sudden, again, Sheriff Lou was telling me that a lot of times these kids hurt themselves. They're using Oxy. And then he told me something that just stunned me, where he says on the street it's $1 a mig. Yeah. So $80 for an Oxy tablet?
Very expensive.
Yeah, how can you afford? And he
well,
said that's why they go to heroin.
Yes.
He said they go to heroin. So now, where does your office get involved with this?
So as I said, we see it. We see it firsthand when people come in and somehow this has affected their lives. So whether it's guardianship or it's the cause of their divorce or somehow their children are wrapped up in it. I believe that as the court system, we can do our best to educate people. And so one of the things that I'm working on right now is just creating a resource center in the court building itself. A separate wing off of our registry where we hand out the paperwork and all the filings, where we can provide people with the information. So after they file things with us, we can send them into this room and they can have access to different brochures, pamphlets, materials, people to call, different groups that they can reach out to. And I believe it's a start to getting people at least thinking about it, talking about it, and hopefully some of the help that they need to try to better what they can.
So these aren't the people who are hooked necessarily.
Not always. It's family members. And that's the biggest thing I've found with the probate and family court is everybody has a family, everybody's part of a family, and somehow your family is affected by everything that's going on. So whether it is drug addiction or if it's a divorce or something like that, domestic violence we see often, somehow your family is wrapped up in it. Almost every single family is going to come through the probate and family court at some point in their lives, whether it is the divorce, guardianship, or probating an estate of a loved one who's passed away. will most likely be in the
if we
court.
walk through these and you say, okay, so there's a member of the family who has fallen to opiates or all the way to heroin, and that's taking a negative toll on the family. You know, I can see it where if it's the father or mother, I mean, if you can't get the person straight, I can see where divorces may come from that.
Absolutely. All the time.
But, okay, so they come and they file papers. Reason for divorce, he's a drug addict? I mean...
It's not always that pointing the finger or that cut and dry. And for me, it's not even that important that we pinpoint exactly what it is that you're there for. I think that that's really important for each family member and each individual to kind of figure that out, and they know why they're there. And so it's not for me to, you know, probe into that, but more to get them the resources moving forward.
I'm getting a divorce, okay, and it would have to be my darling bride giving up on me because I married so far below her. Yeah, it's like she was married so far up. She's 100 years she's put up with me. She's still my best friend, and why she puts up with me, I'll never understand. But I go to the court. We're getting a divorce. Okay, so if I'm the divorcer, what do I do?
So you're going to come to us, and one of the biggest things that I've wanted to focus on in the 7 short months that I've been in this position is customer service, and that's customer service at the counter. So the first thing you're going to do is come into the courtroom or the courthouse, and you're going to see our registry, and you're going to see our front counter staff. And so we have spent a lot of time training the counter staff to be friendly and approachable, listen to what people are asking of them, never quick to jump to a conclusion or a judgment, and really spend time focusing on people's needs and what they're there for. And so we have a fantastic staff in the Worcester Courthouse. I'm very thankful for that and for them. And so they've done a great job really learning to be sensitive to people's needs. And so customer service is hugely important, and we'll help walk you through the general process. We're not there to give legal advice. That's what your attorney is there for, of course. But if you're coming in and you don't have an attorney, we'll certainly help guide you and give you the information you need to filing the paperwork. And then once you file your paperwork with us, you have a case. And then your case will go through the process.
It's got to be tough on your staff, because I'm not coming to you because life is good and I'm a happy person.
It's hard, I know.
So for whatever reason, if I'm the divorcer or the divorcee, I'm not the happiest person in the world. So they've got to be ultra sensitive.
It's tough, and that's why I'm so thankful for their fantastic staff. They have one of the hardest jobs in the court, working that front counter, because you are working with hundreds and hundreds of people a day, and of course no one's happy to be there. And so it's really important to me that I work with the staff and we remind each other that we can't lose sight of what we're doing and the end goal, which is to serve the community and the public. And so it can be honestly mentally and physically draining to work with so many people in such a fast, rapid pace. And it's so important that we just remember the focus, and that's each individual is there for a reason, and we need to make sure we take care of each person.
But now, normally, if I'm going through, and we'll go through the other aspects, but I'm going through a divorce, don't I hire a divorce lawyer?
You can, but not everybody does. And so we are seeing large numbers of people coming through. I would estimate about 80% of the people coming through do not work with an attorney. And it's changing. It's just a change in the way people are using the court system.
But Stephanie, I mean, realistically, I hope I never have to learn this, you know, but I wouldn't even, okay, the two of us are married and we decide it's over. Whatever, we've drifted apart, we're still friends, the world has changed. Okay. Okay, dear, are you going to the divorce counter or am I, or do both of us go?
One of the most important things that I believe we need to work on as a court, and one of the focuses I have, is educating people before they come into the court. And it's not an easy thing to do because there's so many people, 800,000 people in the community. And so it's really important to try to go to different groups and try to reach out to people in different ways. For example, going to the senior center and talking to people about probating an estate, or going to different domestic violence groups to talk to them about restraining orders. And so we were working in the community to try to educate people on things like divorce before they come in. The whole court process itself is just overwhelming and daunting. And like you said, you're not happy to be there. And so it can be confusing and it can be scary. And so one of my big goals is to make it as enjoyable of a process as it can be.
It's terribly sexist, but my father and my grandfather had one thing in their control. 90% of the marriages that got screwed up were because of the dads.
Okay.
Now all of a sudden you read the dads or the moms, it's like 50-50.
Yeah.
It's no longer, oh my God, at least I can control one thing in my life.
Oh, no.
You know,
It could be anyone. It could be anyone.
you know, I mean, I can't blame her. After all I do, why she stays with me, I'll never know. God bless my darling bride, because somebody has to stay with me. But, you know, I just can't imagine.
It's tough. It is very tough. And as I said, it's important to be sensitive to everybody because we don't know what everybody's going through. And so I want to make sure everybody feels like we're listening and helping them to the best of our ability.
Is it money? Is that the reason that I wouldn't pick a divorce attorney?
It could be. It could be
Why
money. It could be that you just feel like you can navigate it yourself. It's that you feel like that's where you're in control. It could be any reason. And something like a divorce, if you guys are agreeing to it and you guys are agreeing on the process, it can be fairly simple. And you might feel like you don't need an attorney, though attorneys are there and they're specialized for a reason. And I think that
How can it be simple? Well, I mean, I've been married 100 years. I can't imagine just saying, okay, cut the house in half. You live on that side, I live on this, you know.
I know. It's an individual choice, I guess. Everybody, you know, they go through it and they figure out exactly what they want from the process. And that's why attorneys are largely helpful, because they've done it a million times and they know exactly how to navigate. And so it is really helpful, I believe, to work with an attorney. We have a great set of attorneys that work in Worcester County as well. But one of the things I think it's important to focus on is, because there's so many people coming in without an attorney, how can we make the process easier for them? And that's through things like launching a website. We're in the process of creating the website right now that will just give basic information. This is what you can expect when you come to court. This is what you should look like, because you, of course, want to be dressed properly. This is how you should speak to the judge. This is how you should work with the registry staff, which is where you're getting the paperwork. I want to explain all of that to people. I want to explain how the forms are laid out. All the forms are already on the internet, but giving people a little bit of guidance in what it means to be a plaintiff, what it means to be a defendant. Putting all that information in a centralized location is hugely important, so people understand what they're coming into when they come to the court.
Does it matter if you're the divorcer or the divorcee?
It does in some certain ways. It does, because you're the one initiating it. So
you have more work to do?
Potentially. You're starting the whole thing,
See,
so
dear,
you might have a little more.
don't do it to me. You'll have more work to do.
Oh, goodness. So that's very important, is getting to people before they even come into the court so that they understand the process, they understand what to expect, and then working with them through the entire process. They come in, they see us at the counter, we're greeting them, we're talking to them, we're understanding the best we can, and then they're with us for quite a few months depending on what they're there for. And
quite a few months?
It could be years, it could be months.
Years? So you decide to get divorced and you have to stay together for years?
Well, you don't have to stay together, but you may be in court for years.
Oh, okay.
So we want to make sure that we're working with these families the entire way through and getting them any resources we can afterwards.
You got me nervous when you said you go to the senior center and talk about divorce. Yeah, I was like,
I know.
At my age?
It's important for all the families to know that they could create a will or have a little bit more information about that.
Let's talk about probate.
Okay.
Why do I have a probate side of the court?
So probate is things like your wills, and so probate is essentially initiating the action, so acting on the will. And so, of course, if you have a loved one that's died and they've named you in the will, you're going to come in and you're going to want to claim those assets. And so you're going to come in and we have a specialized set of employees, and that's exactly what they work on, because it's a long, complicated process. There's a new code that governs all of our wills.
Okay, wait a minute. When I die,
yes,
my darling bride
Yes.
gets everything.
Okay.
She dies.
Yes.
My sainted children get everything.
Yes.
That sounds pretty simple to me.
Ideally, ideally, but it's never that simple, is it? And so there can be a lot of other factors that come into play. Say, God forbid, your children are fighting over the assets, or there's a creditor who might make claim to some of the assets. So it can be long and complex.
But do I simplify it, Steph, by having a will to begin with?
Of course, you definitely would want a will. And that's something like a will, you don't want to go at it alone. You definitely want to work with an attorney and work with them even on probating it, because as I said, it's a long, complex process. There's a whole new set of rules that were just rolled out a few years ago that govern the whole process.
Well, I remember when our daughter was born, and somebody warned me that if I didn't specify who is going to take care of my daughter, you know, my darling bride and I get into an airplane crash.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, our sainted daughter is on her own. Doesn't it then have the family or probate court decide?
You would definitely be coming in, yes.
I mean, to me, that step one would be the minute you have a child, you want to pick. Because it doesn't automatically go to your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, right?
It's always best to have your wishes laid out, have them in writing, have them organized, have them filed with the court, work with an attorney, and lay out
So I
everything
go to an
you would
attorney
want.
and I say, in my case, Uncle Peter is, you know, Uncle Tim's going to take care of the kids. And I work with them so they understand what assets are available.
Exactly.
And you make sure that, okay, when you're gone, they are the guardians of your children.
You're going to have talk to your attorney, put all of it in writing, then your attorney can work with us, file it in the court. We have it on record. It's a little more long and complex than that, but that's the general gist of it.
Yeah, but I mean, that to me sounds like step one.
Yeah, you always want things in writing.
If I don't have a written will, if I don't have, you know, a document that says this is how I want my child taken care of, don't get me wrong, but somebody in Worcester is going to decide my daughter's future?
Potentially.
Okay, that doesn't sound like a good thing.
The interesting thing about the law that always keeps us on our toes is the complexity of it. And so nothing's ever cut and dry or that easy, and that's why we have wonderful judges who help make those decisions. But definitely put it in writing.
So step one, if you have children, you should have a document that says, in case the two of us take that long bus ride north, and I hope it's north. If they hand me suntan lotion, I'm not going to be happy. But the day comes when my darling bride and I are gone. If they're minors, I want to decide who's going to take care of them.
I would definitely suggest that, yes.
And is that pretty well safe if I do that?
It's really hard to give any type of definite answer to anything. Every circumstance is different. Every situation is different. The facts of every single case are different. And that's why it's best to work with an attorney who has done it millions
But
of times
the attorney,
before.
you know, in our case, our neighbor Dennis Sullivan laid it all out. And he filed it and he did all the good stuff. I got back a book, you know, from him.
Yeah.
But thank God, Sharon and I are still alive. The kids are now adults, so we wouldn't have this issue. But if we had passed, what are the odds the court won't listen to me?
Oh, gosh. I wouldn't want to speak to that. I don't know. Of course, all the judges in the court are always working within the best interest of the family and the children, and that's everybody's goal, always the children, and that's the focus. I can't speak to any statistics on that, but I can tell you, at least in Worcester, we have a wonderful, wonderful set of judges, and they work really hard to serve
But the odds
needs
are
of
much
the community.
higher that they'll follow my recommendation if it's written down and filed. Otherwise, how do they know what I wanted?
Exactly. They have wishes to work off of if you've written it down. Exactly.
So what pitfall should I avoid? So when my children or whoever comes to probate court, they don't run into big issues.
In general, I think before coming to any court, just doing your research and knowing what you're there to file and why. I think it's very important that people come in with their focus and their goal. And so oftentimes we see a lot of the child custody, we see a lot of custody issues, we see child support issues. So parents
And
paying
we'll get to that next.
child support. And so I think knowing what your focus is and knowing what your end goal is and knowing what you're there to file, and then we can help you make sure you have the proper paperwork and we're going in the right direction, because of course no one wants to file anything frivolously, and there are some fees associated with filing things, and we want to make sure we're getting you the right paperwork, you're filling out the right paperwork, because it is time and energy to be there.
Does the state take a cut? My net worth when I die is $100. I want to pass it on to my children.
Okay.
Okay, if I have a will, a last will and testament, I have everything filed properly, I'm pretty sure that that $100, unless you hit the maximum, goes to my kids. What happens if I had no will? Does the state take a piece of it, or?
I honestly don't know the answer. You have me stumped, but that's why we have our will experts in the court. And so if you have any specific questions like that, I would highly suggest just giving us a call, and we can try to walk you through what we can. As I said, none of the staff is there to be an attorney.
Well,
our goal is not to give legal advice, but we're really there to help you through the process.
But you can go through the checklist. Here are the 8 forms you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
Hey, by the way, on 6, you need to make a decision.
Yes.
Here's a set of attorneys that you can
got it.
call.
Kind of. We do have a lot of community resources, and so we encourage people to use those. And so we will hand out all of that information, and those are the type of things that I had said previously about putting on a website. I really want to make sure people have access to that information right at their fingertips. We'll gladly get you over to the law library, which is located right across the street from the courthouse, and help you access resources over there. But if you give us a call right at the main court building, we're happy to try to answer any questions we can, and we funnel hundreds of calls a day to help people through the process.
You mentioned that some of the complications may be my $100. I have 2 children.
Yeah.
They both get 50.
Okay.
But you said sometimes they fight over it.
It could happen. It does happen. Any family could do that, of course. So we want to make sure.
Do you have any idea what would cause them to fight?
That goes back to the family itself, right? And so there's a lot of different things that affect
So
all
if I
of
like
our
one
families.
kid better than the other,
You could.
I could give one kid 75, one kid 25.
You could. You could.
I won't get flowers on my grave.
No. And there's a lot of things like that. We all know what it's like to be part of a family and to have some different family disputes. And so we want to make sure, we help where we can and make sure everybody
Now,
feels
you
taken
also
care of.
mentioned that if I owe somebody money, they could put a lien on my estate. Is that how it's described?
Potentially, if there's a creditor that you owe, some of the money in your estate could go to paying them back. So every case is different. As I said, they're all long and complex, and so I can't speak to any of them generally.
There's no cookie cutter that
There's
says...
never. That's why we have such a complex court system, and I'm thankful for it. It's obviously great system in the greatest country, and we have wonderful judges who are obviously very intelligent and practiced in all of this, and they follow the law and make sure there's justice for everybody.
Now, the biggest part of what you do seems to revolve around the family court side of it.
I would say that's the bulk of it. It is.
What is the biggest activity?
The
We talked about
divorces and the
divorce.
guardianships. Those are the biggest things we see. And I think my job in general that most people aren't familiar with is that it's half a managerial position and half of it's a community and service position. And so I spend about half of my time in the registry, in the office, running and organizing an office. We have a staff of about 35 employees, and so they're the ones working hard behind the scenes. Every day when you come in, you file your paperwork with us, we have to enter it into a system, and we keep track of all the cases, we keep track of everything as it goes through the process that I mentioned could take potentially years. And so a lot of the time is spent working with that staff to make sure our systems are in place and that we're working and running the office properly so that you have the best experience on your end. And so that's one half of it. And then the other half is really the community piece that I mentioned. I'm elected to serve the constituents of Worcester County. And so there's a lot of people, thousands and thousands of people a year, hundreds of thousands coming through the court system. And so hearing their needs, hearing their experiences, and hearing what they want out of the court system. And so I have to be sensitive.
Number one, not to be there.
I know, I wish. But one of the things is just being sensitive to their needs and making sure we're providing those resources that I mentioned, hearing people and giving them the education up front. Because the law in the system, the court system is so complex. And that's why you have attorneys and people who are studied in it. And so it's important that we try to provide people with as much information as possible so that they don't
How
feel
can you-
overwhelmed.
I can see the financial end. If I'm getting divorced and we're arguing, I deserve $51. No, she says she wants 50. Okay, it's an asset. But how do you deal with the children? That's got to rip your heart out.
It is sad. It is sad. And so the judges are going to look at every single element of the case and decide what's in the best interest of the children. I think everybody's priority is always helping those children. And so some of what we can do in the registry, because we're more of an office setting and we certainly aren't the judges or the court itself, but just talking to the kids, playing with the kids. There's been days where I've had to babysit kids and their parents are running in last minute to talk to a judge and get a judgment before the court closes for the day. And so we just try to be sensitive to those children. They don't want to be there either. And so whatever we can do to try to help them and make the process easier for them
I
is
can
important.
see it. People change. And if you're two adults, for whatever reason, you and Ryan decided, okay, it ain't going to work anymore. Okay. But I can't ever imagine my daughters.
I know.
They're my girls.
I know.
They're my life. I always said there will be no custody questions. If my darling bride wanted to leave me, I understood. That would be simple, but you can't have my daughters. I just can't imagine when I hear these stories of people abandoning their kids.
It's terrifying. But I think we see a lot of parents that do care, and I think that's where the battle comes from. Everybody loves their children, or you'd like to hope, and so we want to make sure that the children's best interests are met. But that's where some of the battles come from, because everybody wants to be with their children, and they want to take care of their children and love their children, and so we have to find that balance so both parents can do it.
Yeah, and it's got to be tough because it's never equal. I mean, I had the fun part of raising the girls. I got to coach them in soccer. I got to go to the movies with them. I got to take them shopping. When they were sick, they wanted their mom. So my darling bride always got the short end of the stick. And that's why I say, I haven't been a very good husband because I was always dedicated to the kids. Somehow I survived because we've been married 100 years. Now, I've been told the first 100 are the hard years.
Are they?
So I figure I'm on the downhill now.
I've
made the 100. Now it's supposed to get easier.
Oh, goodness.
Not for me. I've had it easy all along for my poor wife. But, you sit there and say, I can't imagine. You hear stories like people have to go to you to try and get child support. So
it's heartbreaking to see it all day and every day. And so that's what I had said previous about the counter staff and myself working with these families to make sure we don't lose our understanding and sympathy for why they're there, because every person is there for their own reasons and they have their own feelings and their own family that they're working with, and we need to not lose sight of that and see what we can do to help each individual family. And sometimes it's just listening and it's care and compassion towards people coming in. And it can be hard because it's family after family after family, but it's important that we work with all of them.
We saw so many times, I was always amazed because we outnumbered the kids. It was my darling bride and I and my sainted mother.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So there was 3 against 2. So we always had the advantage in numbers. But I see some of these single parents and, they've got a couple kids.
Yeah.
I don't know how they keep up.
No.
And then to have to go fight because whether it's the father or the mother not chipping in. And again, reality says when we get old, maybe we change. But how can you not want to take care of your kids?
It's interesting. I think we see a lot of single parents coming in, and one of the phrases I say the most during the day is just stay strong and stay strong for your children. It's hard, and anything we can do to try to encourage them and motivate them to keep going and take care of their babies is the most important thing.
God.
Yeah.
I think I'd be in trouble if I worked there because I'd kick the one who doesn't want to help their kids. If you can help your child and you don't want to, I'm going to kick you.
I know. It's tough, but luckily we see a lot more people who do want to help their children, and that's why they're there. They want the best for their children, and they just need a little help in getting there legally and making sure everything's in writing and organized for them and their families.
So the custody part is probably the most tearful or emotionally draining.
It probably is. Yeah, I said before, we see a lot of guardianship, so a lot of grandparents coming in for custody of their grandchildren, and that's
Because the
sad as
parents
well.
just, it's substance addiction
A
or?
lot of it. I would say the vast majority of what we see is that. And so that's tough because you want to help the grandparents and provide any resources you can or any information to getting them settled. I mean, that's often a huge financial burden on that new family and an emotional burden. And it's difficult. It can be very hard. And sometimes these grandparents come in and they were never expecting to raise their grandchildren. And so something happened, children are taken, or DCF is somehow involved, and the grandparents step up. And so I have a lot of respect for those grandparents that do that because
God
they
bless
put
them.
those kids
When I
in
think
that
of
home.
the amount of energy that we used to expend when we were your age
Yep.
and the kids were small,
I know.
my God, I don't know if I'd have that energy anymore.
I know. And so it's very important that we show the respect that we have for those grandparents and try to help them in any way we can. And so I spend a lot of time in the community finding those resources so that we can pass them on. I try to give out as much information as I can to people that come in saying, head down to this store or that store, work with this group. They might be able to provide you access to something that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. And that's really important for these grandparents so that they can stay on their feet and they can help raise these grandchildren until the parents can come back into the children's lives. And that's always the end goal, is to make sure we put the families back together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so blessed because my mother is living, like I said, I've been married to a saint, because when my father passed away, we had just come back from Paris. We were living in Washington, and it was Sharon that came to me and said, you know, your mother has to move in with us. And I was like, really? Okay, I was wondering how I was going to bring this up.
Okay.
You know, and he said, if she moves back to Milford and lives alone, because I have no brothers or sisters, she'll wither. And sure enough, you know, the grief of, you know, she was married to my father, and they never went anywhere alone. Typical Portuguese, you know, the two of them always went everywhere together. My mother never drove because my father was always there. Well, 27 years ago, my mother moved into our house.
27 years.
27 years. And all of a sudden, there was her new granddaughter. And life was renewed. You know, so the kids grew up with their grandma always there. And it was great for us because, you know, after school at 3 o'clock, they came off the school bus, grandma was there. And today you start seeing it where, you know, my Alexis takes care of her grandma, you know, because she goes to grandma daycare. She had a stroke, the dementia set in. She goes to grandma daycare 2 days a week. We have somebody come in, but they're done before we can get home because both of us work. And you've got my daughter stepping up, saying, I'll pick her up. Of course, it's great for me because I get to pick her up after work.
Okay.
And that means I get to eat dinner with my daughter 2-3 days a week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, seeing strong families like yours is the exact reason I do this and why I'm passionate about helping families and working in the family court. I think that every family looks different, and you know, we see that every day. And it could be grandparents taking care of their grandchildren, your granddaughter taking care of her grandmother. But whatever we can do to try to promote the strong family, provide the resources after people leave the court, of course, set everything up for them legally while they're in the court. But whatever we can do to promote those strong families, I believe that's what makes our whole entire community strong. Because everybody has a family and everybody has a story to share like that. And so when we see families like that, it's so encouraging, and that's what keeps us going. Whatever we
And
can
for
do to
us,
put the
it's
family
just
together.
normal. I mean, we were scared to death. You know, when you think about typical family, you're dedicated to the girls. So every night, you're doing something at the high school, at soccer.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, when the youngest went off to college, I looked and said, after 100 years of marriage, I have to talk to my wife again. We actually have to talk to each other.
I know.
You know, it didn't last long because they moved back home.
Okay.
You know, of course, that's when you get into the discussion where after a while, mother's saying time for the little birds to leave the nest. Yeah, Dad's got railroad spikes. We're spiking that nest to the tree.
Oh,
the
goodness.
girls never have to leave. And eventually they did, but now we see one of them 3 days a week and the other one every weekend.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So,
That's
you know,
perfect.
we still go, I mean, I'm so lucky that every other weekend, my oldest and her husband the three of us go to the movies.
Oh, that's nice.
You know, it's corny,
That's
but we go out, we have dinner, we go to the
Yes.
movies.
Yes.
Some of the movies she picks, I don't care though.
You don't.
Yeah, I don't care because I'm with my daughter.
Exactly.
You know,
And
we
that's
went to
what we
see
wanna
that
promote.
Inside Out cartoon.
Oh.
Okay, but I was with the two of them. I'm very happy.
Yeah.
You know, as an old man, you don't need very much. Being with your kids, and now she's giving me a grandson. That's going to be new
exciting.
though, this boy thing.
I know.
We're going to have to adjust to having a boy in the house.
It'll be exciting. Good for you guys.
So now, on, again, the positive side, you help with adoptions.
It's one of the most positive things we do, and it's really exciting to see those. I'd say we do, on average, maybe 2 or 3 adoptions a week. And so it's the one time we really put the families together, and it's really exciting. I try to participate in as many of them as I can just to go in and meet the families and hear their story and find out why parents are adopting children. We see a lot of, step parents and new marriages, and they're adopting children
Oh,
in
I hadn't
previous
even thought
marriages.
about that.
That's a lot of what we see in the probate and family court. And so it's really exciting to work with these families and share in their excitement when they're in the office.
On our soccer team, we had a couple, and it was amazing because, the girls, when you're with them from August to June, 3 nights a week, they become family. And I remember seeing this fellow, Berto, and he's dating this young lady who had 2 daughters. He ended up marrying the 3 of them. Because after a few months, you would never know that these weren't his biological daughters.
Yeah.
I mean, in my mind, I really admired the fact that he got it. That the 3 of them
Yep.
came as a package.
Exactly.
And he was marrying all 3.
Exactly. As I said, families look in all shapes and sizes, and every family is different, and so it's just important that we make every family the best family that they can be and help them in that journey and that process. So we see a lot of great adoption stories like that.
Now, in most of the adoptions, I'm marrying, you have your kids, I have mine, I'm marrying you. So we're adopting.
It's a lot of what we see in the probate and family court. It is. I'd say that's definitely the majority, and they're a happy occasion, so it's good to.
Do you get any
have those
pushback?
come in.
I mean, I'm adopting your kids, or you're adopting mine. Well, somebody helped you order those children.
Yes.
So maybe that person, either, my ex-wife or your ex-husband, do they come back and get grouchy over the fact that I'm adopting their biological kids?
Luckily, the adoption's final, so that would all happen before on the front end, and sometimes there can be back and forth. Every family, has their own set of circumstances, but we just try to work with them, and of course, we have to have the needs of every party met. But a lot of times, families are clear on what they want, and so we do see that's why it's so positive. We see a lot of what people
Okay, so you
want
don't
and what they
get
go for.
mom and new dad fighting with old dad, or
I can never say never.
Well, no,
Sometimes we
but I
do,
mean the
but
vast majority.
The vast majority, it's a happy occasion, and it's a good thing.
Because I can see how happy it is that you've got a kid in the foster care program.
Yep.
And Senator Fat Man, and we talked to him about one of the campaign promises he had made, that he was going to try and help foster kids. I didn't forget, so I asked him.
Okay.
And he went through the bill he's putting through on the electronic backpack
Yeah.
and helping the kids. So, from that end, anybody who'll adopt a foster kid, you got to be excited for.
Yes. A lot of that process you see in juvenile court, which is a different court system. And so there's juvenile court and there's probate and family court. And so adoptions do take place in both of them.
Okay. Now,
So, and I won't complicate it, but there's just a different set of standards or rules, if you will, that kind of govern the jurisdiction of each court and where the adoptions take
but wait a minute,
place.
if they're not juveniles, I'm going to adopt a 20-year-old?
No,
Wait a minute.
that's just the name of the court, but more likely DCF is involved in juvenile court. And so that's a lot of what my husband works with. He has some great ideas and really some great things that he's hoping to do for foster families, and I think that it's hugely important that we
went
focus
through
on those
and
too.
people who take in foster kids, I'm amazed. Because, we've gone through the exchange students,
Okay.
and they become part of your family.
I know.
We had a host, a girl who played soccer, and that was in 2001. She still comes.
Perfect.
Okay? I mean, that was, we've had kids from 10, 15 years ago that live with us for a year, or two. They're still almost my daughters.
I know.
We had to fly to Brazil for a wedding because they asked us to be the godparents.
Wow.
So we went down there, and I can't imagine having a child come into my home for 6, 8 months. I'd never let him go. I can't imagine.
It's a lot of what we see similarly with the guardianships. It can be a grandparent, but it could be a family friend, and they could have a temporary guardianship of a child and have the child in their home for several months, and then the child will go back to the birth parents. And so it can be difficult for everybody
Oh, my
involved.
God.
But we're thankful for those families that do step up and do it.
That's what I'm saying.
And
I'm
that's
amazed.
the foster families as
I
well.
couldn't-
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
That they
I'm so
can
thankful
open
for
up
them.
their families, open up their homes, help a child out for 6,
I know.
8 months,
I know.
and then have the child go away.
I know.
I'm, like I say, some of the kids that live with us, KK, 2001. So that was, 14 years ago. Every time she's in town, or Anna, and we had to go from Marina all the way to Brazil for her wedding. And she hasn't lived with us for 10 years.
I know.
But every time they're in the country, they stop by, they stay with us.
I know. I'm sure Ryan told you it's not a perfect system, but it's certainly a system we're thankful to have because you have opportunities like that and
What
your
other
family
choice
shifts.
do you have?
I'm sorry?
What other choice do you have?
For the children?
Yeah. So when would they come to you versus juvenile court? Is it if DCF's involved? Or?
Not always. We do work with DCF as well, but there's a whole set of jurisdictional rules, and that's what decides any court that you would go and file documents in, and that's why it's always best to call us. So if you have a question, ask us if we're the right court. When you come in, we'll make sure we go through all of the...
You and I are getting married. You have kids, I have kids. We're going to cross-adopt.
Yes.
Juvenile or family? How do we decide, or what's the decision point that pushes me either way?
So you're probably going to be in the family court, probate and family court, and we're going to look at things like if you've already had a case open with us, and what is your case, and what's involved in it. Juvenile court tends to handle things like DCF, the foster children. That's really the bulk of theirs. For us, it's that you're coming in, that you maybe had the previous divorce case, and now you're going to work with that family to do the adoption.
So you get all the real happy.
We really do.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're getting all,
love them.
hey, I'm adopting a child that needs adopted, or
Yeah.
the two of us
And
are getting
you're
married.
usually on the same
we're
page.
doing the
Yeah.
Brady Bunch thing.
It is exciting. It's really cool, and it's fun to see. I mean, we had a family come in, and I think that there was 4 children, and they were in their 60s, a range of 60 years old, and they had been with the father for forever, and they just wanted to make it official. And so it's really exciting
How cool
to
is
do
that?
that. I know, and help them sign off on the paperwork and go through the ceremony with them, take some pictures, and share in that special occasion. It is really fun.
Selfie time. We were.
It's what we do in the courtroom.
Now, I also saw that you're involved in name changes.
We do name changes.
Okay, to an old man who doesn't understand, why would I change my name?
It could be a variety of reasons. Sometimes you go through a divorce and you never asked and requested your name to be changed, though you should, or often do. It could be that you're wanting to change your name there could be a religious reason, right? It could be that you didn't like your birth name, and usually it's a little more complex than just liking it or not, but any reason that you feel like you would need to change your name legally, that's what we would assist you with. So we'll just help you fill out the paperwork and then get you into the court, and the judge will
I
make
hadn't
the
thought about
decision.
that. So if I adopted or took on my spouse's name, yeah, and I'd like to see that change since I have 2 daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the guy, the one on TV where he said the guy took the woman's name. Yeah, that would be a good thing.
That's what you want?
No, yeah, we'd like that, but that ain't going to happen.
So that happens usually when you're married, but sometimes people don't request it when they divorce, or they don't want to change their name after they've divorced, and then 5 or 6 years later they decide
Well, I can
they
see
want to
it
go
when
back
the
to the maiden
kids are
name.
small.
It could be a lot of reasons.
So if you're a Smith and the kid is a Smith,
Yeah.
it just feels easier. And then, okay, once the child is of age, you can be back to a McGillicuddy or whatever you want.
Yeah. There's always a different reason. People always have their own needs why they would come in and do something like that, but we have the paperwork if they're ready for it.
Now, involuntary commitments.
Long and complex, whole host of things. That's something you're definitely going to want to work with an attorney for. And so something like that, I said we have a specialized line for all of those type of long and complex things. One of the great things that we have in our court is a family law facilitator. And so he's unique to only Worcester County, and so he's a great attorney that we have on staff. And so he'll walk with you a little more complex through the process of paperwork like that. One of the other resources we have coming to the court, which I'm very excited for in the next month or so, is a family resource center. And so it'll be staffed with attorneys who are doing their pro bono work. So they're working for volunteer hours, and they're going to be helping families fill out forms a little more in depth. And so it's going to be for the entire court system. And so that's one of those things where it's helpful or important to have an elected position in the court system, right? And so through years of people hearing this feedback and learning what people coming into the court system need, this is a result of that. And so that's why there are elected positions in the court, which seems so odd, but we can hear what the community needs and we can see the feedback, we can see what we can do to provide these resources, and so that's one of the fruits of that labor.
What am I being committed for? I mean, if you ask my wife, she said I should be committed
'Cause you're crazy.
many times. Is it that I've suffered and I can't take care of myself? Is it
You could be mentally incapacitated for a variety
I had a
of
stroke
reasons.
or
Something like that. It could
oh,
be
my wife says about
different
me, I'm
things.
just old and I forget things? Yes.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, it could be a host of reasons.
But is it typically that it's mentally not able?
Mentally
So it's a
incapacitated
safety
people.
issue, really.
Sometimes, yeah, it can be that.
Because if I can take care of myself, then I should be able to take care of myself.
Hopefully, ideally, yes.
I'll put you on the spot.
Oh, gosh.
During your campaign, you said one of the issues you wanted to deal with was making, let's see if I can say this nicely, making the office better managed.
Absolutely.
That there were areas that you thought, if we voted for you, that you could make more efficient.
Absolutely.
Okay, you're 8 months in. Have you done anything?
Absolutely. I like to think that that's the project every day, is what can we do to better manage the registry? And so I'd mentioned that's about half of my job. It's going into work every single day and managing an office. And it's that balance with working in the community. And so it's an interesting balance, but fun. And so we have about 35 staff that work behind the scenes everywhere from manning the counter. So when you first come in, you get your paperwork at the counter. You file your paperwork through the
You
counter.
have 35 people reporting to you?
Yeah, about 35 people.
And you have time to even talk to anybody?
I know, it's a busy day. It certainly is. We start at the counter, we start with the counter staff, and so that's one department, and we focus on that, and we focus really on customer service there, because those people are also responsible for answering the phones. And so, as I mentioned, we get hundreds of phone calls a day, people wondering everything from what day do I come into court to what do I wear, what do I bring, what is expected of me, I have a question about my case. We get hundreds of calls that we field a day through our switchboard system. And so we have the counter and the switchboard system that we focus on. And then we have about 20 or so staff that are doing docketing, it's called. And so they're putting all your information into the computer system, working on the cases, organizing everything, sending you what you need in the mail, going through the entire process to make sure you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's, that all your paperwork is ready to go before a judge, because the judges have a lot of cases and everything needs to be in proper order, so it gets to them and they can go ahead and move forward and make the decisions that they need to make. And so our job is to support those judges and make sure everything's ready for them. And so a lot of what I've been working on is reorganizing and restructuring the office. And so when I came in, I felt like it was chaos. I felt like people weren't coming to work on time or leaving work when they wanted to. We had a lot of people not really sure what their jobs were on a day-to-day basis, because there weren't proper job descriptions or matching people up with what they're supposed to be doing in their jobs. And so I've taken a lot of time to focus on that, because I believe that when we organize and structure the office and we have the staff working efficiently, then when you come in, you're going to feel it, you're going to see it, and you're going to feel more comfortable there. So I can tell you one of the first changes we made was we open the doors now. So you come into the courthouse and the doors are open to the registry, which is just a little warmer, a little bit more comfortable. You come in and the first person you'll see is a greeter. And so we have a person who greets every single person and directs them to the line that they want to be in, helps them with any initial paperwork. We have a long list of names of everybody who's going into court. He will help you find your name on the list so you're not overwhelmed looking for it and trying to figure out which court you're going into. He'll direct you to the courtroom, show you exactly where you need to go, and that's the first step in the process to just make it a little bit more comfortable for you. And then from there, as I said, a lot of training on the counter staff. I spend days going through different trainings. We have different series that we put in place once a week to train staff on different things, whether it's eye contact, something as simple as looking you in the eye when you're so many feet away so that you feel welcome, or talking to you in a certain tone, just the way they approach you, the way they say, "Can I help you, please?" Those little things make a difference. And while it's not necessarily huge, because you're still overwhelmed when you come into the court, it's a little bit to make it a little bit easier for you.
Something as simple as you're saying, okay, I've never been to court. What do I wear? Do I want to show up in holey jeans and my cleanest dirty T-shirt, so I can tell the judge, see, I'm poor, I can't afford clothes?
Yes. You don't want to do that. And so one of the things we've also done is put an outline of what to expect when you come to court right at the door when you first come in. And so we've also started handing out packets of information with the morning greeter. We have a wonderful set of interns this summer that are helping us out from some of the different schools in Worcester. And they're helping hand out information. So before you even come into the registry, before you even step foot in the doors, you'll have some information about what to expect, what to wear, what to look like, how to address the judge, because courtrooms can be really daunting. They're overwhelming, they're big, and then you're staring at the judge. And so we want to make sure you are prepared for that. And of course,
just addressing the judge.
We want everybody, yes.
Right? You're looking up, and it's like, okay,
I know.
How do I talk
what
to the judge?
What do you say? Do you stand? Do you sit? Do you smile? It's tough. And so we want to make sure people understand that a little bit better. I mean, this is their court system, and that's what it's for. And so everybody needs to have access to it, and it's important that everybody does and feels the best they can. It's not easy by any means. No one's going to feel completely comfortable, but we want to do our best to try.
I thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And hopefully now, to our 6 loyal viewers, that you only get to experience the happy side of Stephanie Fatman's Register of Probate's office, that you don't have to ever deal with the downside. But I hope, I had no idea. I was looking for probates to register. There's got to be a probate around here. I'm going to catch it and register it. Now at least, I hope you gain some understanding as to what services are available. And obviously, reach out to the office of the Register of Probate if you have any questions. So thank you again. And to our 6 loyal viewers, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better day than today. Good night, all.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just searching for my soul.